The wage hike destroying businesses. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein or cup of coffee because I want to discuss this new Fair Work Commission minimum wage rise. Now, there's an issue with the minimum wage. It's an artificial intervention into the market. Don't kid yourself to think that we're in a free market here in Australia. We are not by any means. Now, there are some people that, frankly, may not have developed the skills yet to be worth the product or provide the productivity of the minimum wage. And by putting this artificial base in wages, you are disincentivizing them from, or even stopping them from getting a job, getting skills, getting those first steps on the skill ladder. So if you argue for a minimum wage, you have a duty of care and responsibility to provide for those people in perpetuity, forever, if you're stopping them achieving, if you're stopping them from being able to just get the skills. Because there's some families where it's generational poverty, generational welfare dependency, so they don't have the culture or the skills even just to go to work, which is quite a disgusting and really sad thing. So let's have a look at this example about how businesses just can't afford these wage increases. So you know what's going to happen. Well, people are going to get less hours, people are going to get fired, businesses are going to close. And, well, you know, while the leftists may go, oh, everyone deserves a pay rise, not really if you're not being any more productive. You know, sure, cost of living goes up, but then you need to adapt to, well, sort that out. You need to become more productive, get more ways to earn money. I would much rather the government increases the tax-free threshold instantly and then has more money in the pockets of individuals rather than push this burden onto the market artificially. So, Fair Work Commission announces a 5.2% increase to the national minimum wage. The national minimum wage will rise to $21.38 an hour, or $812.60 a week. So it's $40 a week increase. For people not on the national minimum wage, but on modern and award minimum wages, the increase will be 4.6%. The new wages for most sectors will go into effect from July 1. The Commission cited inflation and the rising cost of living as reasons behind its decision. Well, this is going to mean that businesses are going to pass on these costs and it's going to drive up inflation even more. Or businesses will fire people, or they'll outsource, or they'll automate. They'll find ways to deal with this, to survive. Because we'll have a look at this article here. A cafe owner breaks down over the minimum wage hike. And, I mean, we saw from the lockdowns and just this entire sector got destroyed. There were people giving away cafes to get out of leases, and it's a really tough game. They're a dime a dozen right now. And, I mean, you can get cheaper coffee at 7-Eleven. I struggle to bring myself to pay cafe prices, but I feel sorry for the people in these businesses because they're just trying to get ahead. They're trying to build a business. They're trying to provide employment opportunities. But the leftists don't want that. No. They want you dependent on the state. This is individual thinking there. If you can have your own business and your own success and you don't need handouts from the government every 5 minutes, oh, we can't have that, can we? So, can't afford that. Cafe owner breaks down over minimum wage hike. I mean, think about it. I was frustrated at how high the minimum wages were for our draftees. As architectural students, they got a lower wage because they were less productive, but they could have, they learned how to make good coffee in our office. They could have earned more as a barista. Don't blame them if they did. So a Sydney cafe owner has broken down over yesterday's minimum wage increase, claiming his small business may not survive it. And before we see all of the idiots in the comments go, well, if you can't afford to pay a living wage, yada, 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 shut up. Okay, until you've stood in this guy's shoes, built a business, and then artificially had one of your costs driven up with no increase in productivity, just shut up. Your opinion doesn't matter. You're talking bullshit on your Twitter. They probably never had a real job in your life, probably never actually stepped up and created a business. Because that's the problem. You're going to destroy opportunities for people to get ahead. That's what's going to happen. Okay, and we all lose then. We all lose. All of us lose in the long run. I remember my father was telling me back when he was working for the Housing Commission in Victoria, and everyone got a pay rise. I think this is during Whitlam's time. Everyone got a pay rise. And then, boom, instantly inflation shot up. There you go. An emotional cafe owner has claimed his business might be forced to close as a direct result of yesterday's bombshell minimum wage increase. On Wednesday, see, this is the thing, he'll drive up his prices and he'll lose customers. Because, going to a cafe is a luxury spend. It really is. On Wednesday morning, the Fair Work Commission announced the national minimum wage would rise by 5.2% to $21.38 per hour or $812.60 per week, representing an increase of $40 per week. The modern award minimum rates will also go up 4.6%, subject to a minimum increase of $40 per week, and both increases will come into effect from July 1 for most workers. I remember when we had staff, they would always give me shit when they were getting the pay increase because of this. They'd appreciate it when you give them a bonus or an additional increase, but they loved giving me shit about these increases. I'm going, well, where's the extra 4% of work you're doing every week? The ruling took many by surprise, given it was even more generous than the 5.1% hike backed by the Albanese government, and far above the 2.5 to 3.2% boost employer groups had campaigned for. However, it was less than the 5.5% increase the Australian Council of Trade Unions had been pushing for. There you go. The people who actually, Albanese, he's never run a business. His claim to fame is that he lived in Housing Commission. There you go. A fatherless upbringing. Perhaps that's why we're seeing all of these overly generous policies start to come through. But I guess people have to learn. Businesses will get destroyed. And the businesses campaigning for only a 2.5 to 3.2% increase. Because labour is a big portion of a lot of service businesses. And it's going to be tough to deal with, particularly with all other costs going up. People will just stop going to businesses. But industry insiders and business owners have slammed the decision, which will impact more than 2.7 million Australians on the national minimum or award minimum wage, claiming they cannot afford to pass on the rise and warned that prices could jump as a result. Prices will jump. People will get fired. People will get less hours. One of the countless small business owners impacted by the decision is Sydney cafe owner Philip Salab, who owns the Appetite Cafe in Five Docks. He told Sky News there was a real chance he would now have to close his cafe's doors as a result of the minimum wage increase, on top of other cost pressures such as skyrocketing power bills and grocery prices. I went to a trade event last night, and I was talking to one manufacturer, and he was proudly saying how they're manufactured in Australia. And I go, what? You're still manufacturing in Australia? You should be, everyone's offshoring it. What are you doing? And he says, I reckon more manufacturing will come back. And I go, yeah, not if we keep having blackouts. So, there you go. This is it. Running a business, it sucks in many ways. A game like this would be a nightmare. It would be a nightmare, particularly with power going through the roof. While we accept the increase in the minimum wage, obviously, for our team and others to keep up with the cost of living pressures, we as a business cannot afford it, he told Peter Stefanik. We're offering already 20% more than the minimum wage, but we're being asked to pay at least $42 an hour depending on what the role is. What? That's maybe for a chef. Okay. That's the going rate at the moment, but we can't afford that. See, businesses are going to close. Or they're going to drive up their costs, and then people won't go to the business. So he was moved to tears as he said it would be easier to simply close. Yeah, that's... You get to a point when you think, well, I can be working and losing money, or I can be sitting on my ass, relaxing, playing computer games, going fishing, playing golf, going bushwalking, live a better and healthier life. This is the... I really get the feeling this is the push, the ideological push here in Australia. All these leftists want you to be part of their collective. They don't want individuality. They hate small business because that's, individual drive to succeed, going against the narrative. You've got to be all part of the collective, guys. You've got to be all government's little bitch. At the end of the day, it's a business. We're here to make money. Our profit margins every day get smaller and smaller. And I really question why at the end of the day. If there's nothing to take home ourselves, then why? He said, yeah, he's probably going to get out of it. Consumers will pay the bill. Well, they always do. This is why when you see people call for tariffs to protect uncompetitive industries here in Australia, they're just calling for another tax. They're just calling for another tax. Rather than Fair Work do shit like this, why doesn't the government reduce taxes on us? Reduce it. Maybe ditch a few stupid bloody services that they provide and then get more money in people's pockets. Meanwhile, a number of employers and industry groups have threatened to rise prices in response to the wage rise. It's not a threat. It's going to happen. According to the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry CEO Andrew McKellar, the rise would cost businesses billions, warning that companies have a choice of plummeting profits, passing costs on to customers, or closing down. By our calculation, this will add $7.9 billion in costs to the affected businesses over the year ahead. So that will be a very considerable burden for those businesses. We'll either have to take to the bottom line or pass on to their customers, he said. Don't worry, they'll pass it on to the customers, or they'll close down, and we'll either see empty shops. That will destroy consumer confidence even more, and, it's going to drive up CPI and inflation. It comes at a time when inflation is emerging as one of the most urgent challenges facing the Australian economy. And if we are to address that, if we are to remain competitive, then clearly this is not a decision that will help in those circumstances. Are we competitive? Is Australia competitive, really? I mean, come on. The Australian Retailers Association Chief Executive, Paul Zara, agreed, claiming the boost could send some businesses to the brink. That's what they want. While the ARA support a fair and balanced increase to the minimum wage, we fear the scale of the increase could tip some businesses over the edge, he said to the Australian. No, there's no one really in mainstream public advocating for an abolition of the minimum wage, is there? There really isn't any. This is showing you how interventionist Australia is. We're not a free market economy. We're not even a free market culture. This is why the libertarians, it's going to be an uphill battle to even get the ideas considered by mainstream normie Australians. The Australian Industry Group Chief Executive Ines Willocks also lashed the ruling, claiming the move will add fuel to the inflation fire. Businesses have to make decisions around passing these costs on, so in the end it ends up with consumers who will pay the bill, he said, as per the ABC. My concern is this will add fuel to the inflation fire we're seeing running through the economy at the moment. So morally indefensible, here we go, from Sally McManus. A unionist, her entire life. You look at her LinkedIn, she's just been in unions. So literally a rent seeker off the labor of others. Okay, business owners aren't the rent seekers. Business owners provide the opportunity for people to work and to create lives. They take on all the risk. The unionists, they don't. Oh, it's a hot coffee. A good cup. But the ACTU secretary said working people needed a significant pay rise now. Well, have you reduced union fees? It's morally indefensible for employers to argue for pay freezes when profits are up 20%, and on every measure businesses have recovered well from the pandemic. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? The biggest risk to businesses is actual consumer spending, which ironically they are seeking to damage through the proposed wage cuts, she said. They're not cutting wages. The businesses we saw here were just wanting a 2.5% increase. They weren't calling for a wage cut. This is showing you, this is the lies and deception of leftists to manipulate people. Okay, we're seeing it right here. Arguing for a pay freeze and cuts for working people, that's not what they're arguing for. When all the economic indicators support a significant pay increase, makes it crystal clear that some of the employer groups will never support pay rises for workers. Well, what do you reckon? Let's have a talk about this one, guys. I mean, this just shows you the state of Australia. Okay? Inflation is going to keep going up. This is not going to solve any problems. We've seen fruit and veg have increased because of a lot of the storm damages. But remember, no one's talking about now the wages that were put onto the fruit picker sector now, hourly rate. So there you go. All the vegans, your cost of living is going to go up. This is not the time to be doing this, but it's Australia, and this is what Australia's like. We're going to go through some real tough times, guys. Inflation's going to go even higher, and there's going to be calls for more of this stuff. People just don't get it. They don't get what they're voting for. They don't get how these interventions are going to screw us all over. I mean, if you're on the minimum wage and you want to earn more money, get a better job, upskill, learn new skills, work harder. That's what you have to do. That should be the call. Okay? That should be the drive. Some people, they don't want a better job. They don't want to do this or this. They don't want to take on the extra work or effort. And I mean, good on them. If they want to live a life how they want to live, let them do it. But guys, we can't get used to getting free pay rises every bloody year for doing nothing. What do you reckon? Am I just too bitter and old? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and want to support us financially, there are a few ways you can. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. Use any of our referral links or contact us if you need any architectural services. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. And, well, we've got to keep watching. So long as 7-Eleven coffees are still $1, then we don't have any inflation to worry about. Yeah, that's not going to last. Or maybe it's a loss leader. I'll see you later.